Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Very good, thank you. Thank you to Vlad and the team for some of that research and the outputs, and thanks to all of you here and all of you online. My name is Paul Statham, and I'm the Commercial Director of a company called Atlantis Technologies Limited. And I'm going to run you through today where we've been on our journey with OCP. This is my third OCP summit, and we're an African-based systems integrator. So I'll just take you through our journey, where we see the opportunity in Africa to be an open OEM, how our transformation from a systems integrator to an OEM will happen, and then look at some use cases of where we've implemented OCP in an OEM environment, talk you through a new product launch with Red Hat, and then the calls to action. So we're 10 years old as well, Snap, founded in October 2011. And we operate in the blue areas across East Africa. For those of you that don't know Africa, that's Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, Malawi, and Zambia. And, sorry, my PowerPoint is auto-scrolling. Some big multinational brands there. Hold on a sec. Excuse me, everyone. So we operate across some multinational brands. It looks like it, yeah. Somebody's turned them on. How do I turn them off? I might do. One last try. No. Yes, I do need help, Archana.
Okay. Under slideshow?
Slideshow, yeah.
Is there timings? Rehearse timings?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, use timings. See that checkbox in the middle? Over to the right?
Yeah.
That, I think.
Great.
Take care of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Collaboration, open community. And we've been working largely in the data center with big African brands and also global brands. So our journey with OCP started around about 2017 when we were building our own cloud to be hosted in Nairobi, Kenya, as it is these days. And we looked at the usual suspects as we had been deploying into our customers in the data center around these vanity brands, as they are so called. And we found a lot of issues with that, as we had experienced in deploying into our customer data centers. So there's an incredible amount of talent coming out of the African education system that we found was not involved in the likes of Oracle or Cisco. And this is not an OEM bashing situation, it's just based on experience. So when big projects are deployed in Africa, we tend to fly resources in from Europe or the US, and that's not really developing the local talent pool. Open source hardware, open source software does, and you don't have to make the same levels of investment to develop that talent to be able to work with you. Yes, a CCNE is very good on people's CVs, but it's a limited pool. And it goes back to that coined phrase of vanity brand. That's my vanity. I've got Cisco on my CV. I've got Oracle. Training, very, very similar. We're doing some deployments at the moment, and it's around about $250 an hour for an overseas resource, where you might find the same per day for a local resource. TCO, I think everyone's talked about. We've seen it in our own deployments. We've seen it in anyone who saw the keynote speak from George from Safaricom today. Also saw CapEx and OpEx as critical levers in his business in trying to lower the cost of distribution and improve the distribution of internet and IT and connectivity across the continent. But traditionally, it also gives you a lack of budgetary control. Year 2, Year 3, Year 4, Year 5, support contracts on Dell hardware, for example, are quite punitive for customers. You're not only getting bill shock in your licensing, but you're also losing control of your budget. And, sorry, Somebody calling me on WhatsApp. It's all going wrong, this one. Okay, where was I? So bill shock, also lack of budgetary control. What we call technical debt. You're basically paying for what your predecessor did 10 years ago, and you're locked into perpetual contracts that really eat away at your ability to innovate your IT platform, which leads on to over-investing in legacy systems and a low power of negotiation with hardware vendors. We're just rolling out an open Wi-Fi solution where each time the customer has gone from Cisco to HP to Ubiquiti, and every single time they've been locked in, and those deployments in the university campus environment make it impossible to perpetuate. With open Wi-Fi, for example, and it absolutely plays into the whole open philosophy of disaggregation of hardware and software, every time they want to buy more hardware, they can go to an increasing pool of vendors to negotiate best for their business. And lack of interoperability, again, plays to that same point. So these were the drivers that our customers are saying, this is what we don't really like about working with these great companies. There are lots of positives, but these are the areas that cause us challenges. So as I said, we're looking at our own cloud platform, we're looking at the vBlocks, et cetera, in 2017, and we went through this process, and we found exactly what Facebook were finding. Lower CapEx, lower OpEx. And we're on a tiny scale compared to the hyperscalers, but still achieving our hardware costs was something of 20% of the equivalent vBlock. We built our own cloud platform on top of that, using open source, programmers, DevOps, et cetera, at a fraction of the cost that it looked like it would have been if we'd have just deployed a vBlock, for example. And then on top of that, we've got the flexibility and have implemented our own software as a service in digital learning platforms. Very proud to be an OCP Solution Provider, very proud to get global press coverage from the likes of Yahoo Finance and Bloomberg. And as I said, those results that we're seeing around CapEx, OpEx, and environmental sustainability, not only in our own data centers, but also customer data centers, are really compelling. Which, in a really difficult COVID-affected trading year of 2020, 20 million TCV, total contract value, versus some of the numbers we've seen today, maybe small, but for Atlantis, it was equivalent to the previous 5 years trading with the vanity brands. And I can assure you that our margins are much more healthy than they were. So why be an OEM? And when I say OEM, an OEM on an open basis for Africa, but then also an OEM as a cloud service provider and an edge service provider, utilizing OCP as our hardware infrastructure and our own cloud platform as the management tool in deploying customer applications to the edge. Africa tends to be somewhere between 2 to 5% of the global IT market. It's tiny. It's probably got 20% of the global population. But as George said in his presentation earlier, it is underserved. And one of the many reasons it's underserved is because of the return on investment arguments around particularly telecom and fiber infrastructure. There are so many dispersed small populations that it just doesn't make sense at the moment. And where the open movement is cutting down on CapEx across the data center, the core network to the distributed network, that's really exciting for Africa. Our transformation to an OEM. Now, if you think of the traditional model, the ODMs will make something, it goes to the OEMs, who in my opinion lock it down, make it quite proprietary. Then it goes to a global distributing partner, it probably comes to an African distributing partner, and then it comes to a systems integrator like Atlantis. There's lots of value in that chain. One of the value propositions around OCP is it reduces some of the non-valuable aspects of that chain, like it being locked down and made proprietary at HP, Lenovo, Dell, etc. But they're also significant sales and marketing machines. There's a lot of cash flow management in that process, from the OEM to the distributor to the reseller. So where we've really had to change is in demand generation and sales, building a sales team, building a channel to market, because we can't do it all ourselves, increasing our skills around logistics and procurement. Cash flow management is really important, and DDP management is getting it into the country. These are skills that we have. Local spare holding will be really exciting. Oracle, for example, have spare holding in Dubai and Netherlands that serves the African continent in the main. Getting hold of those spares, we have customers on Oracle systems, can be up to 12 weeks. And these are business critical spares. So we are, with Safaricom, we're holding hot spares in their data center, which they can just pull out with the easy management of OCP equipment. That allows us to offer enhanced SLAs and warranty management. Systems integration is our bread and butter, whatever the hardware is, managed services, and recycling working with IT Renew and Sesame, and new areas where we can add a lot of value to the local customer base. So our target customers are systems integrators and managed service providers, organizations like Atlantis, who've been a systems integrator and seen diminishing returns on investment, stuck between the big multinationals and customers. Telcos are very exciting. I think some of the Omdia research pointed to telcos starting to embrace what the hyperscalers know, and the hyperscalers take a lot of share of wallet from telcos because they're adding a lot of value over the top. Financial services industry, we're deploying proof of concepts into 2 of the largest banks in Africa, CSPs, ourselves as one, and then CDNs across the edge in particular. Where do we think we can compete with the OEMs? Some of those key points: no vendor lock-in, reduction in total cost of ownership, environmental sustainability, hopefully, is coming up on everyone's agenda, flexibility and scalability of being on the ground, and expansion of African talent pool, really important, with so many resources, so much innovation, not only directly with the hardware and software, but also in the applications that sit on top. And then locality of assembly, spares, and support. Again, really critical. Most designs of OEM machines are targeted at Western banks, Western manufacturers. They don't really take into account what African organizations need, and that'll be one of my call-outs to the OCP community. Listen to us. We're a big continent. We're a very fast-growing continent, but we do have very different needs. And then for us as an OEM, an open OEM, is growing that channel across the country. So our cloud platform's largely built around IT Renew and Sesame, and our solution that I'll go on to show you that we've been deploying into customers is around a backbone of a public cloud built on Sesame, and then private cloud built on OCP accepted, inspired, and white box hardware. So really a hybrid solution that we're finding works very well. Our Savannah Cloud, as it is known, is there. There's the technical specification, and sort of classic, talking to Ali's points earlier, around the second user economy of redeploying these assets that have sat in the hyperscalers and are more than fit for purpose in the African market. I always allude to it as a Mercedes-Benz with 5,000 kilometers on the clock and one careful lady owner. What's coming out of the best data centers in the world, 18 months to 2 years after it's been in full production in the hyperscalers, is more than fit for purpose for what we're deploying into Africa. And classically, the scenario that we've deployed is OCP accepted, inspired, or white box into the primary and DR sites for the customer, backed up to our Savannah Cloud, providing a very robust solution in a market where bandwidth is expensive, connectivity is nothing like you will experience in the US or Europe, for example. I just want to pick on these 2 use cases where we've deployed these solutions. Safaricom, again, George alluded to today, the biggest telco in East Africa. But these 2 examples are in the public domain, so I'm allowed to share some of the numbers with you, which really reiterate the CapEx savings. And they're big boxes. There's plenty of compute, memory, storage, network in those boxes. So one is the judiciary, which runs all the courts in Kenya, and one is Kentrade, which runs the government-to-business platform, trade platform, so imports, exports, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, these are in the open domain and in Kenyan shillings. So for Kenyan shillings, divide by around about 110, the magnitude still stays significant to get to $1. So our proposition to the judiciary was around about $5 million. The next nearest was $6.8, shall we say, $1 million. So actually saving the taxpayer and the government nearly $1.75 million. And if we all accept that hardware is largely commodity, the design of OCP equipment, the components are, if not the same, better than OEM equipment without some of the long-term costs of ownership around support, lack of interoperability, lack of negotiating power when you come to upgrade storage or memory, etc. And that saving, in this case, is really going into greater connectivity between the judiciary branches, i.e. the courts. So real value add to that CTO. In Kentrade, with an OCP-based proposal, we were around about half the price of the nearest competitor who was bidding Dell. Again, it's not about the hardware. It is commoditized to some degree. Let's invest in software that differentiates the way Kenyan government deals with business as opposed to just investing in more hardware. Was that a question? Nope, just waving at me. And then ongoing OpEx reduction, we're seeing of around about 50%. And that OpEx reduction is coming from the density. So with Safaricom, for example, our OCP WeWin server, it was half the co-location space that the equivalent Dell was. The power savings on 42 nodes across 5 years was $58,000, just on 42 nodes. And that's a telco with an estate of many, many thousands. The systems admin, I guess we're all here. We understand the simplicity and the lack of complexity in OCP equipment. I haven't got my glasses on, Archana. 5 minutes, okay, I'll be done in 5 minutes. So some real practical examples of how OCP can help organizations manage their scarce IT budgets better, and we can deliver better value to organizations. Our real maturity, I think, with an OEM is working with Red Hat on a Pan-African partnership to deliver a container in a box. So really we're using OCP to say to Red Hat, your software does great things. That can be debated at a later date. But how about we give the customer a lower cost hardware proposition so they can spend more of their budget on software? And it addresses all stages around containerization, the pre-production and production, compute, network, and storage, which will launch next month. And hopefully, here's a little less than 5-minute video to finish on.
Enterprises face numerous challenges when it comes to computing, from getting DevOps to run smoothly to issues with application dependencies and even challenges with scalability. Containerization is gaining more adoption as it enables applications to build faster and scaled across different environments. To make the most of containerization technology and gain a competitive edge, you need the right platform. Introducing Cinebox from Atlantis Technologies in partnership with Red Hat. Cinebox is a full containerization enabler that works as an all-in-one solution combining compute, memory, storage, and containerized apps, orchestration, and deployment. Unlike any other containerization tool, Cinebox has a tailored solution for specific workload needs, be that development, quality assurance, pre-production, or production. With Atlantis Technologies and Red Hat, both leaders in enterprise technology, you're guaranteed to receive expert advisory, 24/7 support, and performance to meet your needs. We can have your organization up and running in a matter of days. Head to our website to set up a demo and experience the possibilities Cinebox has to offer.
So quite exciting to be working with a open source software organization and really putting the software at the forefront of the conversation, because the hardware is commoditized and it allows us to go to market on very aggressive price points. So really, I think one of our calls to action is Africa is slightly different, and OCP community should be listening to every geography that has its own peculiarities. But we do think OCP its philosophy, its collaborative nature, which has been an absolute joy to be a part of, by the way, has a great place in the development of Africa and its technology and its digitization. So Africa's first OEM as a hardware supplier, as an edge supplier, as a data center and cloud service provider. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. And any questions, I think, see me afterwards. Thank you.